what a good boy I was. Our family motto has always been, suck it up. And every time my knees ached, I heard the lyrics to the Melissa Manchester song that my parents would sing along with on Sunday drives. Don't cry out loud, just keep it inside. Learn how to hide your feelings. And that's when it came, the final timpani. The drum roll lasted longer on this one, and the suspense was maddening. Now we would find out if Jerry had outdone last year's total. The numbers flipped and flipped until they landed on 422097727. Confetti rained down on the tally. The band played a brassy yet sentimental flourish, and the number 422097727 burned itself into my brain. Yeah! Jerry sounded the highest note of the entire 22-hour entertainment marathon because 422097727 crushed last year's total. He had hung on to win by a knockout. The confetti stopped coming, the lights dimmed, and the band played the intro to Jerry's closing number. Singing did not come easily to Jerry, but when he connected to the material, he was absolutely riveting. Walk on, with hope in your heart, and you'll never, never walk alone. No, you'll never walk alone. Tears were streaming down Jerry's cheeks through the final refrain. It was too much for me. I ran from the living room to my bedroom, maybe the last good run left in my adult legs, buried my face in my bedspread, and wailed. My mother tore in after me. "What's wrong, honey?" she demanded, shaking my stiff little body. In a voice that rode the primal wave of my sobs, I shouted, "I don't want to be one of Jerry's kids!" As she coaxed out my tale of hypochondria and patiently explained the phenomenon of growing pains, my mother rocked me in her arms. From the kitchen, I could hear the comforting sound of beer cans popping open. My dad stuck his head in the doorway and smiled his antic smile. I looked into my mother's eyes and saw the same intense look of pity that Miss Judy had lavished upon me at the muscular dystrophy carnival. And as my mother's lips continued to move, sounding out my reprieve, my muscles relaxed, and I sank into her pity like a warm bath. I got one more if we have time. You cool? All right. It's a marathon, people. Let's pace ourselves. It's called Boys Club. Also a true story. Every Saturday morning after 9 o'clock Mass, my father would drop me off at the West Scranton Boys Club. He took me here because he said that I needed to learn how to spit, fart, and curse. And he was right. At the age of 12, I was already an inveterate goody-goody. I served on the altar 7 days a week, twice on Saturday and Sunday. All the other altar boys in my parish had quit, and so I dutifully picked up their slack. I got straight A's in school. I didn't curse, didn't spit, didn't listen to rock music, had never been in a fist fight, and excused myself to the bathroom before passing wind. On this particular Saturday, my dad pulled our Olds Cutlass Supreme up to the curb in front of the club at 10:15 a.m., right on schedule. As we sat there with the Cutlass idling, I looked at my father, he looked at me. After a moment, he said, like he always said every Saturday, "Have fun." That was my cue to get out of the car, hop over the accumulated snow and salt that formed a dirty little glacier along the curb of Lafayette Street, and clock in at the West Scranton Boys Club. My father would be back at 5 p.m. in time to shuttle me off to serve the 5:30 p.m. Mass at Holy Cross. I pushed open the door, and the hot recycled air shot out into the winter bite, carrying with it the strains of an Air Supply song. You could tell that it was early because of the air supply. When the cool kids got there after 11 a.m., they would walk right past Mrs. Christoph at the front desk, into Paul Shaughnessy's office, and switch the station from Magic 93 to Rock 107 without even asking. Ancient Mrs. Christoph was there at her post, as she was every Saturday, the reptilian gargoyle of the West Side Boys Club. She rested her left hand on the receiver of the beige telephone and her right hand on the base of the big silver microphone that she used to page people. This positioning of the hands, coupled with her glazed, 1,000-yard stare, managed to give her the appearance of being at once catatonic and alert. Since she was hard of hearing, the light hits were really cranked up, and she bobbed her head almost imperceptibly to air supply's every woman in the world. I walked past her with my little buttocks clenched tight and blurted out, "Good morning, Mrs. Kristoff." Though her physical presence was less than imposing, Mrs. Kristoff had earned the nickname Pissed Off Kristoff for the hair-raising, irrational screaming jags she aimed at the children she perceived to be crossing her. I looked over my left shoulder to confirm that there was no one yet occupying the front rec room as I passed the desk. The front was the first-class cabin of the boys' club. Its big-picture window looked out onto Lafayette Street and let in plenty of natural light, even in the persistent gloom of February. It had an air hockey table, a regulation-sized pool table, a Royal Crown soda machine, and a black and white TV that was mounted high on the wall like in a hospital room. It was awesome. And the provenance of the much older, much cooler kids. Even if there was no one else in there, I knew that I had no place in the front. What if Sack Granahan or some other teenage burnout discovered me there? My very presence would be provocation enough to warrant a public beating. And my MO on Saturdays at the boys' club was to lay low, keep my puritanism under the radar, and maybe learn to be a bit more normal. I was like a pudgy little narc working undercover in the opium den of boyhood. Wisely, I stayed en route to my haunt, the back rec room. The back had the ambiance of a Soviet orphanage. Its walls were made of concrete blocks covered over with several coats of white paint. A low drop ceiling lined with fluorescent tubes added a touch of claustrophobia to the atmosphere. The back was the refuge of the preteens and the little kids, and it contained 2 homemade wooden ping pong tables, neither of which had nets, a shelf of board games that all had pieces missing, and the bumper pool table. When it had arrived 3 weeks ago, the bumper pool table created an instant sensation. It was the only legitimately new thing in the club, and everyone wanted to play it. Fights broke out over the little cue sticks. Big kids sidled in from the front to check it out, even though the table was kiddie size. One time, I'd even caught a couple of junior varsity football players in the midst of a heated game. "Can I play winners?" I asked. "Fuck off, you fat little faggot," came the reply. It was a cool game, and I was determined to make it the one game that I could actually win at the club. So every Saturday, while everyone else was upstairs in the gym watching the little kids' basketball league, I would head straight to the bumper pool table to practice. That Saturday, as I crossed the threshold into the back rec room, a tiny super ball whizzed past my nose. "Look out, Rizzo, you fat faggot!" It was Bonesy. PJ Bonesy Collins was standing on top of one of the rickety ping pong tables, hurling handfuls of the tiny rubber balls at the back wall and then watching them carom sharply off of the floor, the ceiling, the shelves, and the light fixtures. In the midst of his chaos, Bonesy would stand stock still, taking pains not to flinch. It was a 12-year-old's version of Russian roulette, an exercise in useless bravado that Bonesy found endlessly fascinating. He called this game balls to the wall. "You flinched, faggot." I wasn't even playing, Bonesy. And with that, I squirmed out of my puffy ski coat and tossed it onto the unoccupied ping pong table. I grabbed my cue stick and set up the bumper pool table for a practice round. "What'd you do last night, Riz?" Bonesy was looking for the last super ball so he could return to his perch and have another go at balls to the wall. I watched the Dukes." "Cool. Did you see Daisy's crack?" "No, Bonesy."